My name's Steve Wilkins, and I'm going to be 76 years old next month, in July the 13th. I've been in CB radio for, well, I got started in Ohio, Cincinnati, Ohio, which is where I'm from, back in 67. Toward the end of 67 is when and that's back when you had to actually have a license for your, my call letters, ARN6881 was my call sign for CB back in 67. And at the end of 67, I went in the Navy for 4 years. And then my folks moved down here from Cincinnati down to Florida, Apopka, Florida, which is where I live, outside of Orlando. And they moved down here while I was in the service, and so when I got out of the service in the end of 71, I just went ahead and moved here. So I've been in Florida ever since 1971, actually, the end of 71. And I got another CB base station probably about mid-72, and just got a little ground plane, little 5-watt base radio. Of course, I lived in a real tight neighborhood in Apopka, and that's back when everyone had rabbit ears and the old glass tube analog TVs. And we got a channel 2 and a channel 6, which are two channels that are the worst for bleed over off of CB radios. So every time I talked with that 3-element beam and the barefoot radio, I mean, I wiped out half the neighborhood, half a block, you know, on TVs. So I decided to get me a mobile, you know, a powerful mobile, because I enjoyed shooting DX. And of course, back in 72, I think it was 74 or something like that, they discontinued the licensing. Somewhere there about 73, 74. But anyway, I went ahead and got a box, a 4-pill driver called a Gray 300. They were made down here in Fort Lauderdale. There was a factory that actually made them before they got busted. And I put that in the car, and I used to drive out of the neighborhood and shoot all my skiff out of the mobile. I'd park in big empty parking lots, or at the end of cul-de-sacs, you know, that didn't have any, new cul-de-sacs didn't have any homes built on them yet and stuff like that. And shot a lot of skiff, a lot of DX and everything. It didn't bother anybody's TVs anymore. Well, I got introduced to CB radio way back in 66. A good friend of mine from high school, or well, it was early high school. His dad was an Ohio State trooper, and he had a CB radio at the house, and I used to go and watch them talk on that thing. That's where I really got the interest, you know, in it. And then I graduated from high school, and I got my job. I got a job. My first job was working for a company that sold electronic equipment called Allied Radio in Cincinnati. And being as how I was an employee there, I was able to get radios and CB equipment for half price. Good discount, you know, so that's how I got back in. That's how I got into CB myself. But everything was legal on CB. I mean, it was more formal back in those days on CB than ham radio is today. You didn't use handles, and you didn't, you know, you did none of that stuff. Everything was legal. You didn't run any extra power. FCC was really hot on you back in those days, you know. Well, for about 5 years, I ran this little FM broadcast station. It was a little 1-watt, one of these Chinese transmitters, put out, well, it didn't even put out 1 watt, put out a half a watt or 100 milliwatts. It had 2 powers, and I ran obviously. But anyway, and I ran certain frequencies, you know, for a while. I ran it for over 5 years and didn't, you know, nobody ever bothered me or anything. I mean, it didn't really go out all that far. I did put a real decent dipole, a company called Stereo that makes CB beams and stuff. They actually make FM broadcast dipoles, you know, that you can buy. And I bought one of those, and I put it up 25 feet at my house, you know, put it up 25 feet, and that gets it out over all the homes and stuff. You know, if you try to run just the little rubber duck antenna, you know, you can with a half a watt, you only cover about 4 houses down, and that's about it, because it can't cut through all the block walls. you got to get it up high. So I put it up, on that antenna, and it got to where in the car I could get it up to 8 miles before it would totally fade out. So I started on a frequency, I think it was 103.7, and they put us, they all of a sudden plastered a low power legal FM station on that frequency, so I had to move to another one. And this happened to me like in a 1 year span. I was on 4 different frequencies, and they plastered every one of them. They plastered it with a low power legal FM station. So I decided to go down to 87.9, which is 2 frequencies below the lowest legal frequency, 88.1 for the FM broadcast band, and it was clear and quiet and everything. But I guess that was a mistake, because all these people, I guess, that were running these legal stations would hear it when they were driving up and down 436. I had 2 guys show up at the house one day after 5 long years of running that thing, but it was only 2 months that I'd been on that frequency. And they were just in this, it was like a white brand new SUV. There was no antennas, no markings, no nothing on it. And I look out my window when I heard the knock on my door, and there was 2 guys. One of them was actually had a camera pointing it at my FM antenna and shooting a picture of it. I knew right then what it was. So I opened the door, and the first thing I said was, "Well, I guess I'm in trouble, huh?" And he looked at me and laughed. He said, "Well, no, not really." But he said, "We have got a couple complaints about your FM broadcast station. You are a little over the legal limit, for Part 15." And they knew I was a ham too. But they could have busted my ham license and everything. They knew my name. They knew everything before they got to the door. It's amazing how they know everything about you. So I let him come in and see the transmitter. He picked it up. The thing would fit in your hand, sitting there looking like that. He says, "Man, that's incredible." And he was a young fella, and I played oldies. I'm a big 50s and 60s music buff, and I had a computer program I had over 1,400 songs that would play right in a row from the 60s and 50s. And the one guy, and I know he was young, he was like in his 30s. He said, "I was enjoying your music while we were tracking you." And he said, "You're going to have to shut it down," because he said, "You got a complaint." He said, "We're not allowed." Anyway, they didn't charge me with anything. They didn't take my ham license or nothing. They let me go, which was very nice of them.